This is a podcast about new crops. You're going to love it. Join us on The Cutting Edge, a podcast in search of new crops for Wisconsin.
We found just this unbelievable response from the community, which surprised us. We were hoping to get, 1 to 200 people on our first weekend. We hosted 1,200. The second weekend went to 3,000 and then ramped all the way up in the subsequent weekends to more than 6, 7, 8,000 people from more than 40, 50 countries. And all of them had a story to tell. It's been incredible.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Cutting Edge, a podcast in search of new crops for Wisconsin. My name is Stefan Mirsky, and I'm an outreach specialist for emerging crops with UW-Madison Extension. I'm very excited to bring you this second part of our series on mulberries, where I talk with Anil and Smita, co-founders, along with Anil's brother, of the brand Very Mulberry and Habitera Farms, an 80-acre commercial mulberry farm in the Bay Area of California that just opened for business this spring and operates primarily as a U-pick farm. Habitera Farms is the only large-scale commercial mulberry farm in the United States today. The story that Anil and Smita share in this episode embodies a passion, gratitude, and an entrepreneurial spirit that left me inspired and eager to share with you all. I'll admit, after recording these 2 episodes, I've become pretty enamored with mulberries and a true believer in their untapped potential. I'm excited to bring greater attention to the efforts of Anil and Smita, as well as Eliza and Scott, in the hopes that more people will discover, as Anil put it, the miracle of mulberries. I hope you enjoy.
It's great to be part of this podcast. I'm Anil Gadwani. I'm originally from India. I was born and brought up in Delhi, moved to the US when I was 17. And I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have started a few companies in the tech space, but all throughout, and also invested in many others, all throughout my life, not just in India, but when I moved here, I've been passionate about fruits and vegetables. And I think that love continued, which is what led us to the farm.
Thank you for having us, Stefan. My name is Smita Sadana. I am actually also from India, from a different part from where Anil is, and we met here in California. I have a background in finance, and I am an active investor. I have studied a lot of new crops just out of interest, like avocados and pomegranates, how they were introduced. And when I came across mulberries a few years ago, they just seemed to have a lasting impact on me. In fact, every single year when I tasted them, I was more and more excited. And I learned a lot about them, a lot of, about their nutrition, about their taste, textures. So that's what led us to start this together, along with Anil's younger brother, Gautam. So there were 3 of us who originally started this farm.
And did either of you have experience growing or eating mulberries growing up?
Well, I have a lot of experience in eating mulberries. I didn't have any in growing them. There was a tree in my neighborhood in Delhi that was a very tall mulberry tree that I would get mulberries from, neighbor's tree. And that, when I first moved to the US, I was looking for mulberries here and I couldn't find them, which is what led me to plant a few mulberry trees. And they happen to be the same variety that we are now growing at the farm, the Himalayan mulberries, about 15 years ago. And, as the trees grew and had mulberries, we had friends and family over, and they kept calling us the year after saying, "Are they here yet?" So I realized that everybody, it's not just me, but a lot of other people seem to love them as well.
So same thing here. We didn't have a tree per se, but I remember eating mulberries as a child. And they were never really sold commercially also. You would just get a little packet of mulberries from a neighbor or, friends, but we could never really buy them. And I always thought, why can't we just buy mulberries or get mulberries? Because to me, it was a very easy to love fruit. So we tasted Himalayan mulberries along with a lot of other mulberries. And Anil has a massive tree in his backyard, and the mulberries were delicious. So that is what led us to research and explore this whole area of mulberries a lot more seriously.
So did you find out an answer to your question of why don't more people grow mulberries?
I think mulberries are as amazing fruit or berry as they are. They're very, very delicate. They bruise easily. They need to be put into cold storage right away from the minute you harvest them. You have to get the heat out of the berry quickly by putting it in forced air cooling and then storing it in in a refrigerator. And then even as you transport them to the customers or to grocery stores where they might be sold, they have to be done in cold storage trucks. And the shelf life is not more than, let's say, 5 to 7 days from the time they're picked. They can last a little bit longer in perfect conditions, but 5 days is a good number to look at. So I think that's probably the biggest reason. Of course, there's also awareness, and the way the farming industry, we're new to farming, but as we've made some friends in the farming business, we realize that it's a fairly conservative community, and I can understand why, because if you put trees in the ground, that's a significant investment, and it'll take 2-3 years before you find out if that investment's going to ROI. So I understand. So because of that, even people that are now starting to grow mulberries, they're doing it on very small acreage. Just being from Silicon Valley and a tech entrepreneur, all of us having that background, we decided that it would work, and we planted, instead of a half an acre or an acre, we planted them on almost 80 plus acres.
So I think one more reason why it's very challenging is also the fruit has to be color picked. It's a tree, it's not a shrub, and to pick a single mulberry which is ripe from a tree which has a lot of unripe mulberries day in and day out is also significantly difficult. It's very expensive, labor intensive, and as Anil said, it takes a long time for a tree to actually grow and start yielding mulberries. So there's, unlike other berries and several other fruits.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into some of the details about how you address some of the challenges with growing mulberries. But I want to ask first, to the best of your knowledge, how many other commercial mulberry farms are there in the United States for the fruit?
Smita, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, so I think there are some small commercial farms that don't exclusively produce mulberries. They have mulberries like 10 trees, 50 trees, an acre, 4 or 5 acres, but as a part of other trees, other crops that they grow. To our knowledge, we think we are the only ones that are doing commercial mulberries on this scale in the United States. In fact, I would think even in the entire world, there are commercial farms that produce mulberries for the sake of drying them and selling them for, as dried mulberries. But for a U-pick experience, and especially for this variety, Himalayan mulberries, we have not come across a single one, especially of our size.
Yeah.
So you guys really are trailblazers. That must have made the process of starting the business really challenging. Can you just talk a little bit about the research that you did prior to planting, and where did you go to do the research? What did you learn? What kind of resources did you find out there for doing this kind of venture?
Well, as I had mentioned, I planted a few mulberry trees in my backyard about 15 years ago. So in one sense, you can think of the R&D already starting with that initial tree. We call it the mother tree being planted. And since then, I planted about six or seven more. And as I started to look at how those trees were doing, I planted some other varieties. We started to look around to learn more about mulberries, not just online, but also in places like UC Davis, which has a large 80-acre plus, let's call it experimental farm, which has, I think, like 60, 70 varieties of mulberries that they grow. So we went out there and met with some of the folks there. Um, and, Smita did a lot of research online looking at what information there was available. And, interestingly, mulberries have been grown in Asia for quite some time, not at a commercial scale, but they've been grown. Silkworms, obviously, eat mulberry leaves. So we found a lot of interesting data on mulberries and their properties and why they were such an incredible fruit in all this research, especially some of the information we got from Asia.
And a lot of it we actually had to figure out as we started. For instance, this tree has a lifespan of a human, and it can also grow to be 100-foot tall tree. So how do you get mulberries off a tree which is that tall? Even if you prune it, it's the nature of the tree is to be tall. So we actually, over time, experimenting on Anil's tree in his backyard, tried different methods of harvest, tried different methods of, storage. And the one thing we did learn very quickly is that you have to keep them cool. As soon as you get them off the tree, they need to be cooled. So that's something that we borrowed from the berry industry. It's a very well-known fact for all berries, not just mulberries. But regarding how to pluck them and harvest them from the tree, on that we had to do a lot of R&D.
Okay, can you talk about how you decided to grow the Himalayan purple mulberry as opposed to the dozens or perhaps even hundreds of other varieties out there? Like what made this one special?
Well, I mean, the biggest reason is taste. There's lots of mulberries, as you said, in fact, over 100 varieties, but some of them are tart, other ones have flavor, but it's not that great, or it's relatively bland. As we tasted all these different mulberries and we were trying to compare to some of the mulberries we had back when we were growing up as kids, this particular one just stood out. It wasn't shades of gray. It was basically black and white. Like, this one was just so much more flavorful, juicy, and also it's fairly long, in size. It's usually a few inches longer can be longer than, your finger. This became the obvious choice in our minds. The Himalayan mulberry just stood head and shoulders above the rest that we had tried.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the actual farm and how you grow them. You said 80 acres, and the trees can grow up to 100 feet, if I got that right. So
Yes.
So just kind of paint a picture. What does your orchard look like? How far are the trees spaced apart from each other? How wide are the rows? And then how on earth do you harvest fruit from a 100-foot tree?
Well, we've gotten really good at climbing. No. We we have about we're experimenting with the number of trees per acre. We have tried planting of 18 by 18, 18 by 9, so we could still leave 18-foot space for just tractors and other equipment. But we're also looking at some high density experiments where we might plant as many as 5, 6, 7, 800 trees per acre. But I would say the bulk we have over 10,000 trees on the farm now, and we'll probably add a few more. And our sense, like we obviously, you can't let them grow to anywhere close to 100 feet. So we prune them and keep them no more than 18 to 20 feet at best, maybe a little lower. We're now experimenting with other ways to prune them. But the way most of the trees that we have at our Habitera Farms Mulberry Orchard are in that like sub 20 feet, 15 to 20 foot range in height.
Can you just talk a little bit more about how you prune them, how you keep them to that height? Is it similar to, say, like pruning an apple tree or?
I mean, we do a lot of hand pruning and like shaping the tree, but we've also used some mechanical pruning where we just top the trees off and then kind of prune them to shape the tree as far as the sides of the tree goes. Um, our sense is that there's a lot of experimenting and R&D that's going on. We are also new, but as we looked at best practices and methods of pruning, we realized there weren't a lot of them. So to your point, we are trailblazing and learning and looking at other crops and seeing what works well, what doesn't work well. So it's relatively early days. We planted the first set of mulberries in 2020. And then, we then added some more trees in the next couple of years. So it's relatively new still.
Wow, so you planted your first trees in 2020, and
Right.
only 3 years later, you're open for business.
Yeah, the trees grow extremely rapidly. They can grow as much as a foot a month in 8 9 months of the year if you take out the winter and the rainy season. And so you can see it. You can have a 2-year-old tree that is 18 feet tall, and a 3-year-old can be, if we let it grow, even taller. Um, and I would say that you start to get some fruit, maybe about 10 pounds or so per tree, maybe a little bit more in the second year, and then it grows rapidly from there. These trees, if you let them grow large and tall, and they can yield 200-300 pounds of fruit per tree. But again, depending on how you prune them and how they're grown, it could be less. If you don't let the tree grow as tall and as wide.
So I think we should also count the time that they were we grafted them onto a
Grafted
different
them.
rootstock. So
Yeah.
I think that was also something that took time, but we are only counting time from the time we actually put them in on the farm, which was 2020.
It's a long process. Once you make the decision to plant mulberries, you work with either internally or with a nursery to get the trees, ready to plant, which takes about, let's say, 1 year, at 9 months to a year. Then you plant those trees, and the initial fruit takes another 2 years after that. Really, if you want any kind of yield that's north of 30 plus pounds, it takes 3 years. So now you're 4 years from the time you decided to do this before you start to get a yield which can be commercially sold. And that, I think, is not easy thing for, like, if you look at a lot of the other berries, you can grow them much faster, and they're shrubs. And so I think the investment required is higher, and you have to go for a period of a few years before you can recoup that investment and the farm actually becomes profitable. And that won't even happen in the third year of growth. It would happen, once the trees are in the fifth or sixth year, really, because that's when the yield is, north of, let's say, 60, 70, 80, 100 pounds a tree.
So you mentioned that you grafted your trees. Where did your scion come from? was it just one tree from the UC Davis collection? And then what did you graft those onto? Is there some rootstock that's preferred, or?
There are different things, different rootstocks that people use. We used another mulberry rootstock, another tree. The scion came from the trees in my backyard, the mother tree that I had mentioned, which had really amazing quality of mulberries. Initially, we only planted few trees, few acres, and then as those trees grew, we took more scions from my the mother tree as well as some of those trees. So essentially, you could say that pretty much all of those 10,000 trees came from that one tree. If in a couple of 2 or 3 different tops.
Yeah, and this tree has incredible DNA. I mean, the fruit is really amazing, large, delicious, juicy, vibrant color. So I think even in Himalayan mulberries, we wanted to make sure that the one that we got had great DNA, which was at least one known. That's why we used the mother tree.
So I'm sure there's people out there thinking that they would love to get their hands on some of this plant material. Are you sharing this or selling it, or have you gotten any inquiries from people about that, and what has your response been?
We've decided that we do want to share it. Obviously, as a business, we do a lot of R&D. Some of it is not fully baked yet. Some of it we want to keep proprietary. But as far as the trees go, this year when we did the U-Pick and went to several farmers markets across the San Francisco Bay Area, we received many inquiries about people wanting to buy these trees. So we have decided that we will sell some starter trees under our Very Mulberry brand from next year.
Great. I might be first in line for that.
We'll be happy to get you one.
Cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your markets. You mentioned that you run a U-Pick operation. Is that your only market for these, or do you have other outlets as well?
We sell through different channels. We sell online through Good Eggs, and some other online markets, which deliver directly to the customers' homes. We are in more than a dozen farmers markets. On our website, www.verymulberry.com lists all of those out. And then we also have U-Pick every weekend. Next year, we may even open on a weekday, one or two weekdays. And the U-Pick, because of all these people from different countries having eaten mulberries in their childhood and not being able to eat them when they moved here to the US, we found just this unbelievable response from the community, which surprised us. We were hoping to get 100 to 200 people on our first weekend. We hosted 1,200. The second weekend went to 3,000 and then ramped all the way up in the subsequent weekends to more than 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 people per weekend from more than 40, 50 countries. We had people from Israel, from Turkey, from China, from India, from UK, from just South America, so many places. And all of them had a story to tell. We had a 100-year-old great-grandmother from China who was telling us the story of how she climbed these mulberry trees when she was a kid in the 1930s in China, and she stayed out there for 2.5 hours. So it was an incredible experience. Now, to finish off on your question about the channels, next year, as more of our trees start to grow more older and have a higher yield, we're also going to go open up several wholesale channels through the traditional grocery stores, and we're in talks with several of them now. We always will have U-Pick and farmers markets because we love that direct connection with the customers. But we also see ourselves growing other channels like we intend to look at a neighborhood CSA program or connecting with some. We intend to look at wholesale as well as online, continue to grow that.
And I think most of our mulberries will be sold in a small radius. So far, we are just in the Bay Area, and San Francisco Bay Area, we may go up to LA, but outside of that, we don't plan to ship it or, send it across the country. It's a very delicate and exquisite fruit, and it cannot bear being, traveling all the way through.
So this may be going backwards a little bit, but I'm curious how you harvest the fruit. So I would think, for U-Pick, obviously people are just picking it themselves from the tree, but when you're selling at farmers markets or some of these wholesale accounts that you're talking about, does your harvest look different for those markets?
We have, as you said, for U-Pick, people hand pick. We do have some hand picking happening at the farm, but the bulk of it is done in something we kind of invented. We call it the shake and pick, where think of two large rectangular carts, which have nets on them, being pushed to either side of the trunk of a particular tree. We then have some of the farm workers shake the tree, sometimes with their hands if it's small, sometimes with basically, again, certain farm equipments that we have created that can shake the major branches. And the beauty is that in about 2-month season, May and June primarily, we end up shaking each tree at least 30 plus times. So that's a lot of shaking. And the beauty is that 95% plus of the mulberries that fall on the nets, that the cart, has on top are ripe. So it's wonderful to be able to harvest the entire tree in a matter of, less than 60 seconds.
So I think there are two things. One is that the branches of a mulberry tree are very supple. They are not hard, so they can be shaken gently without damaging the branches. Second, mulberries have this amazing property that when they're ripe, when they're purple and ripe, you just touch it or you tap it and it falls in your hand. But an unripe mulberry, you have to tug at. So when you shake the tree, just gently, the ones that are ready to be tapped, those are the ones that fall. And you do get some of the other ones too. But then after that, we kind of manually pick each and every mulberry. But we try not to touch the mulberries a lot because we want to preserve the integrity of the fruit. And this shake and pick strategy, we have had many different variations of in the past 4 or 5 years. Even before our trees, we practiced on the tree in his backyard, and we figured out things that don't work. And we've come to basically this strategy of making these net carts with wheels on them and these shakers that we shake the tree with.
Yeah, I can imagine you had to do all this research on your own because there weren't any precedents for it. You're the first ones. Just quick question, what do you grow between the rows of mulberries?
We don't grow anything. We just have some, since we are big believers in, not using chemicals and growing organically, sustainably, we do put some cover crops in between. But otherwise, we don't plant anything else.
Okay. So I'm also curious. So you talked a little bit about how the post-harvest handling and processing needs to be really delicate. So after you've shaken the trees and you have a bunch of berries in the nets, what's kind of your process? What do you do with the berries after that to ensure that the quality is high for farmers market or other markets?
Well, we have a crew that uh, takes the berries off the nets, packs them into clamshells. That's where we do our one part of our quality control and inspection, make sure it's the right amount of berries. They're not overpacked, underpacked. They are the right quality berries. And then we quickly take those, put them into crates and take those crates into basically a forced air cooling unit that brings the latent heat inside the berries. Let's say that you pick them in the morning and the temperature is 70 degrees. The berries are around that temperature. The forced air cooling in about an hour and a half will bring that down to, let's say, 40 degrees or less. And then we place them in the refrigerator, which then brings it down further to around 34, 35, degrees, which is where they stay for a few hours till they are then, or the next morning, which is when they are put into, again, cold storage trucks that take them to the destination that they will be sold at.
Have you done any processing of the fruit or thought about, like what are mulberries good for besides fresh eating? Have you explored that at all?
Smita will take that question.
Yes, so we have actually been experimenting a lot with mulberries. They are great for smoothies, fresh or frozen. They're great for making jam. Mulberry jam has an incredible following. We had a lot of people try making jam on their own, different varieties. You can use it in baking. These bake really well. You can I've even made mulberry margaritas. You can use them in drinks. You can puree them really well and freeze them in cubes if you wanted to. So I think you can use them in anything other berries are used for, which is primarily your breakfast cereals, your jams, your baking needs, even for cooking, for sauces. We have somebody making beer with mulberries. So they are incredibly, easy to process. And the only thing is that these mulberries have a lot of fiber in way of a long stem. And some people really like the stem. Some people leave a part of the stem outside. So depending on how you use it, in some cases you can use the fruit as is, but in other cases like jam, you need to manage the stem. You need to figure out what you want to do with the stem. Either you blend it and make a jam, or you de-stem it and make a jam. So people have even sent us even more things, and like they've made mulberry donuts, they've made mulberry ice cream. So we have a few artisans who are actually making different items with the mulberries they have got from us, but we also have users, mulberry lovers who are using them in all different concoctions.
I'm wondering if you provide any of these tips or recipes like on your website or handouts to people when they come to your farm to give them ideas of what they can do with them, or maybe they
Yes.
already know.
This is actually a great question. Many of them don't know, and they ask us. So we do have a small recipe section on our website, but we plan to increase it next year. We also have received a lot of recipes from users who are adventurous enough to try them. And we are going to put those out also next year. We also put some tips on how to freeze mulberries because the season is short and the fruit is delicious. So you want to extend, your love for the fruit throughout the season. So we have put a video on how to actually freeze the mulberries. But we do want to keep doing more and more work every year to bring some education and engagement on how to use the mulberries outside of just snacking on them. But I will say this, that very few mulberries make it to processing. Most of the mulberries are just for the time being consumed as a snack.
And can you say how long your season is, approximately?
The season is a short season, about 8 weeks. Sometimes it can be a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more. 7 to 9 weeks is a good gauge to look at. Generally in Brentwood, which is where our farm is, in the months of May and June. Although there are microclimates which, get them earlier in April, and then there's some that will extend into July. But generally, the 2 months, May and June, is a good number to look at.
Yeah, and so you talked about how your customers come from all over the world, and that on any given weekend you can have people from 30 plus countries. I just think that's so cool. Can you say any more about what it's been like to have such diversity of people come out to the farm and be so excited to pick these mulberries?
It's been really exciting. I love people, interacting with them. I think uh, one of the organizations I started in the past is called India Community Center. It was inspired by the YMCA's and the Jewish Community Center, which is now the largest Indo-focused community center in North America. So we've always been, Smita, Gautam, passionate about building community, connecting with people. And I would say that of all the channels, the U-Pick has been the most fulfilling. I've spent, barring one weekend where I had some personal stuff to take care of, I was there just about every weekend, every Saturday, every Sunday from, when it started to when it stopped. There's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to have people come from all these different backgrounds and they haven't tasted mulberries and see that reaction. I found myself talking to people as they would walk in and asking them when had they tasted a mulberry. If they hadn't, before we even got them to sign the liability or get some clamshells, I literally walked them to the tree right next to us and just had them taste one and saw the look on their face. And we have some of those pictures on our Instagram where the look of delight and reconnection. People told us so many stories about their childhood and as they kind of missed mulberries. And then there were also people that had never tried them before that just heard about it from friends. And there's a growing buzz, let's just call it, in Silicon Valley that there's a new fruit in town, and people want to know it, people want to taste it, people want to experience it. And as these people that had never tasted one, we would, it would be fun to just have them, put the first mulberry in their mouth and just look at their, reaction and ask them what they thought of it. And, by and large, people absolutely fell in love with them, have all fallen in love with them and are reconnecting, or, a new love affair for people that haven't tried them. So it's been incredible.
I would add that, one very difficult consumer is a child. It's very hard to have them like something, and they're very honest in their opinions. They can be brutal, and they will never mince their words. And children loved mulberries. The one thing that we found over and over again, that there were babies and little children, families were coming with 3 generations, large groups were coming with friends. So it wasn't just a fruit, it became an experience of over family bonding. We had a group of people who came and just worshipped the mulberry tree. And so there's a lot of emotion, a lot of nostalgia, but also there's a lot of love for this new discovery. And I don't think it's just the taste. I think there's also a lot of knowledge that many of us have about the nutrition already. And then getting a thumbs up from the littlest consumers, I think that to us was very incredible.
Yeah, that must be really gratifying. Um, from a business perspective, what has it been like so far? I mean, have you been selling out of all your berries, or I mean, it sounds like you see room for growth, and that you're seeing more and more people get interested. Just curious, yeah, what it's been like from a business standpoint.
I think it started slowly. But as people realized that mulberries were here and available, we started seeing just a lot more people coming. As I mentioned, our U-Pick traffic grew from 1,200 in the first weekend to 7,000-8,000 people per weekend in the last 2-3 weekends. Our farmers markets would sell out routinely, some within the first 2-3 hours. And what would happen is that people would come and say that I came to the market today for one reason, to buy these mulberries. And you would see lines forming, which typically doesn't happen at farmers markets. There's just these lines. People just were waiting to get these. So we're now at a point where we just in one short season have inbound interest from multiple places, people that want to process them and put them in their products, people that just want to, buy some, chain stores that want to carry these. And despite the fact that we're the largest grower, even with the 90 acres, there is the demand is increasing, and we see this mushrooming. We believe that there is a tremendous opportunity for mulberries to capture America's imagination. We believe that it has that magic about it. And we see the mulberry market over the next few years, decade, 2 decades, growing significantly. I wouldn't be surprised if this became, the top-selling berry in America in the future.
Wow, that is quite a prediction.
It is actually a very easy to love, Stefan. It's a very easy to love mulberry. It has a very gentle taste, great texture, beautiful color, and again, like other berries, it is also very high in nutrition, but the nutrition in mulberry is actually higher than most other fruits. So I think once you get over the hurdle of the new fruit and how it looks like a long caterpillar, like a thing. So once you get over that, everything else is delicious about it. It's just an incredible experience to taste one.
I actually like the way they look, but I think I'm biased in that sense. People have the thing that we haven't specifically touched on, which I think might be interest to your listeners, is that there's a lot of talk these days about superfoods, and it's almost become a buzzword that's used quite often. And berries come up often because of their, low glycemic index. They don't spike your sugar glucose levels as much as some of the other fruits. But to find a berry that in Asia is known as shahatut, which means berries fit for royalty or the king of berries, that then is a superfood among berries. It actually is healthier, than all other berries. For example, it has the lowest glycemic index. It has the highest iron content, which is, really something that a lot of people, especially women, it's great for, is more than 3 times the iron content. And then you couple that with a high calcium, which helps with the absorption of iron and so many other properties. And at some point, I think, Smita, you should talk a little bit about not just the fruit, but the leaf, what amazing properties the leaf has. It's not by accident that silkworms will only eat mulberry leaves. So we like to call it, Stefan, not a superfood, but a miracle food. We are coining a new category called miracle food because it is the superfood of superfoods, yet tasting so sweet. People have routinely asked us, have you poured some syrup or sugar on it? And we smile and say, no, you just pulled it off the tree. How could we have done that? So it's a remarkable fruit.
Smita, do you want to say anything about the leaves and the nutrition?
Yes, yes. So, the leaves, as delicious as a mulberry fruit is, the leaves if you do research on them, they blow you away. I mean, the mulberry leaf is high in protein. It is considered as a medicinal leaf in many parts of Asia. They powder it, they dry it, powder it, or they make a tea out of it. It is supposed to be great for managing sugar for a pre-diabetic and also for a diabetic. So typically, there's a lot of research existing already. It's a very clinically really well studied leaf, and ingested before a meal in a powder form, it helps block the absorption of carbohydrates. And several studies have shown that mulberry leaves help people with diabetes, with high cholesterol levels. And as you know, that these are the main epidemic that America is facing today. In fact, the whole world is facing today. So we feel that mulberry leaf is another untapped leaf given to us by nature. And there's a lot of existing studies, and we've actually received numerous messages from people asking us to sell the leaves because they want to use it in their own cooking. They want to dry it and use it themselves. We have received messages from Chinese traditional medicine herbalists who want to get these leaves. So at some point we will. We've just been overwhelmed with all the love from the community and with the actual processes of growing the mulberry up to this point. And I also feel really happy that it's the mulberry fruit and the leaves together. We could have grown the leaves, fruitless mulberry, and put the leaves on the shelf for people to buy. That doesn't do anything because you don't understand the magic of mulberries without tasting the fruit. So to bring the leaf and the fruit together, that's our vision. That's our real goal. And I want to say something about the mulberry tree also. I think we are biased, but absolutely. But mulberry tree in literature is considered to be a giving tree. It has remarkable fruit. It has medicinal leaves. It has a lifespan of a human, and then when it goes, it gives up all its branches and and the bark. So it's a remarkable fruit, and it's a remarkable tree. So we are actually not just trailblazers, we are also very humbled and very excited and very proud to be working with something as unique and exceptional as a mulberry tree.
That's really beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. So I think we all know that when you stumble upon a good idea, there are other people who want to do the same thing. Have you found that other people have become interested in planting mulberries and starting farms? And what's your interaction with them been like?
I think you're right. Anything that shows promise, people are attracted to it, as they are in this case. We've had people, many of them, approach us about learning more about how we grow them, what varieties, details, economics around them, that want to start their own farm. And our goal is not just to be the only mulberry grower and try to just maintain that. We want to introduce America to mulberries, and the only way that happens is if a lot more, it becomes a mainstream crop. You hear about I'm a big fan of Tesla, and they talk about basically accelerating world towards sustainable energy. If we just want to carry that to mulberries, we think it's a good thing if more people grow them, and there is interest. We do think that it'll be a learning process for people. We are personally looking at exploring things like contract farming and working with farmers that want to grow them, in helping them, providing them possibly the initial starter trees, showing them how to grow it, and then effectively buying all the mulberries from them and selling them. And in that sense, partnering with them. That's one of the programs we intend to look at. Smita, would you want to add anything to what I said?
I think you said it nicely. We do want to bring mulberries to other farmers, because that's the only way we're going to be able to blanket the entire US with mulberries.
Yeah, the challenge, the only other thing I would add is that if somebody's a farmer wanting to grow these, it is not an easy crop to grow. We have made some mistakes. We have learned, and those have been some of them have been expensive mistakes, but we're very committed to bringing this incredible fruit, mulberry, to America. So if there is farmers that are interested in uh, growing them, we would love to talk to them and seeing if we might be able to help them avoid certain pitfalls that we experienced, and even explore if there are ways for us to potentially work together with them.
That's fantastic. I love that attitude. Um, well, as we wrap up here, is there anything else that you'd like to share with people that we haven't already touched on?
I think there are two things that I would say, and Smita, you can add. First, if you hear this podcast and are in the San Francisco Bay Area, I think you should come and experience mulberries at our farm and let us host you. We're next season going to be doing it by reservations, most likely due to just so much demand. And frankly, if you're outside the Bay Area and you happen to be visiting or maybe plan a visit during the May-June timeframe, let us know that you're visiting. And we pretty much are now, we believe, always going to be sold out as far as our U-Pick reservations. But if you're from out of town, we will keep a special quota for people from out of town to come visit us and experience. It's incredible fruit. It's just amazing for your health. So you should try it.
And I just want to say thank you. We have received a lot of love from the community. We have received stories. We have had people who burst into tears when they tasted the fruit, because it reminded them of their childhoods. We have had grandmas bringing their, grandkids because they want to have them taste the fruit that they had when they were growing up. So we have received so many stories, videos, pictures, comments, and we have received so much love. So we are, immensely grateful. We feel very blessed, and we feel really fortunate to be bringing a fruit which is very easy to love.
Yeah. So Stefan, thank you also for having us. It was wonderful to chat with you, and mulberries is a topic we never get tired talking about.
Thanks so much to Smita and Anil for their time and sharing their amazing story. And thank you for listening.
Brought to you by the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension.